Okay, so Felix, in my household, we have this saying that sometimes things are so ugly that they're cool. But did you see the Miami Hurricanes, I guess, military appreciation uniforms?
Good God.
Okay.
And like, I think Miami is one of those, like, is one of the few college programs that outside of like their classic uniforms, and like they have their classic orange and green and whatever, but like they're still kind of cool outside of like Alabama's just red and white. K-State and Bill Snyder never changed the uniforms. USC still wears black cleats. Miami is like, you guys are cool. Like, that's your whole thing. That was not cool.
It reminded me of, now this was cool, what it reminded me of, but do you remember when it was the Army-Navy game and Army wore their winter, whatever the battalion is, it's like the winter battalion, and they were all white, and then it actually was a blizzard, so you couldn't see them at all. Well, Miami, the pants actually matched the color of the grass, and outside of the black helmet, you literally could not see on the TV where the Miami players were. So it took camo to a different level. Those were so ugly that they stayed ugly, and I couldn't see the game. It was horrendous on my eyes.
Golly, that's crazy. In a town, like the town is all about cool, and you guys are like, let's screw it up.
I mean, that's one of those where on paper this works. In reality, it doesn't. It's kind of like when media people actually, especially like TV producers, they hate blackout games because it just soaks up all the light in the stands and you can't see anything on TV. Yes. But it is who it is. All right, let's get into it. Huge college slate. I think really now we can kind of have an idea of where everybody is. We had a couple of really big games where it kind of set the tone. The NFL was pretty much a snooze in the early window. And then outside of my Broncos, it was in really, we talked about this before we came on. I have a personal interest in the Broncos, but so that game was awesome for me. But really, the 49ers. I have
financial interest in the Cowboys, but whatever.
I could have told you that was a bad bet. Nobody asked me, though. But then also, really, the 49ers versus the Texans was really the only kind of good game in that late window. And it was basically that Spider-Man meme of everybody looking at each other the same. And the better quarterback won. So there really wasn't much in it. Let's hop in. I thought South Carolina is one of those teams. I feel like they are just on the cusp of being really, really good. They finally every year, and they finally have a draftable quarterback. So that's like that's the one thing they've like never really had was a quarterback. They finally have one. Alabama has figured it out. Ty Simpson looks like an absolute monster. Interesting note about Ty Simpson: he has a younger brother who is going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the 2028 class. His father is the UT Martin head coach. So this is a coach's son who went to Alabama and is just flourishing. So
when I read this, I was like, class of 2028, golly, Cody's scouring this middle school recruiting websites or whatever. But no, that's just in a couple of years. I'm just getting old. This is crazy.
I have a buddy that coaches in that part of the country, and he was like, "Yeah, I guess there's another quarterback in that part of the country too. I think that's coming out next year. That's also." So he's like, "I get to see two of the best quarterbacks, and these are like 4A schools. These are not like 6A or like super big schools." But the story to me here is LaNorris Sellers. We've talked about him before. You mentioned this. You could be suckered into drafting him early in the first round.
To me, it's like, yeah, Anthony Richardson went in the top 5 just a couple years ago. And like, I mean, depending on like Arch Manning isn't what we thought he was. Garrett Nussmeier might have fallen down some draft boards. I don't know how people feel about Fernando Mendoza and Diego Pavia. Like, I mean, I don't know how certain people feel. And LaNorris Sellers feels like a guy. I mean, obviously we've seen him able to produce a little bit in college football. And he has a little bit more of the attributes in the pocket that AR-15 just didn't have. And, I mean, who knows? He might win the combine. Like, he might come out, run a 4.4 or something like that, weigh in at 240, have a 41-inch vertical, and then all of a sudden we're sitting here and, yeah, of course the Saints are taking him with the 4th overall pick or whatever it looks like at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. I think if you watch his tape, people are going to make the comparison to Anthony Richardson just because of just the physical size of Sellers and then just the athletic prowess. This kid can throw. I think the problem was I did that deal right before the season started. I took the Parcells test, right? He doesn't have enough time, and he's not going to win enough games just because he plays at South Carolina. But I think this is one of those situations where you have, like, I remember, this is going to throw a name out there, Jay Cutler coming out of Vanderbilt. He didn't win many games, but he took him to two. I think they went 6-6 2 years. Were able to go to 2 bowl games. Well, you have a guy who is literally trying to throw to a creative player in Harbor that cannot catch. And then he's trying to keep
one in this game that was like, all right, can you do that more?
He did. He had a great game. It's like, golly, could we, he's going to be one of those. I really think the Harbor kid will be one of those. Somebody's going to take him like an Al Davis, like this, we'll just make him a football player type deal. But I do think like with Sellers,
like in the same way, just hope he's DK Metcalf, if not more.
And he's way bigger. He's way bigger. He's a freak. I was talking to my kids. We were kind of watching the game, and I told I was like, hey, this guy runs like a legit 10-second 100-meter dash, and he's like 6'5", 230 pounds. He should not exist. He is an absolute alien. He should not exist as a human being. He does, but of course, there's always an Achilles heel, right? And it's the fact that he can't really catch the ball, which is
he's built like Achilles with the hands of stone.
Right. It's kind of important, and that's one of those things. That's another trait that I don't think people understand, that eye-hand coordination. That's not, you can work at it, you can get a little bit better at it, but that's not just something that comes like, oh, I'm going to fix that. Yeah. That's a concentration thing sometimes. All right, let's move on. Staying in the SEC, Texas comes back from Mississippi State, a little bit of a trap game there. I think a lot of people, it's really interesting. I live in Dallas, so the Arch Manning whole thing in Texas, we hear a lot about it all the time because there's so many Texas fans here. But it's so funny that everybody now is so quick to get off of Arch. We mentioned it early before the season even began, like, hey, let's press pause here.
6 weeks.
Yeah, and two, like I've been one, like I have a personal interest in this because I did some stuff with Quinn when he was at Texas, but I was like, guys, like just hold on, like Ewers wasn't as bad as y'all think. Here we are looking at it, and people are like, man, it would have been nice to have Ewers back for one more year. Then we have coming out before the game, Sark to the NFL. He's been putting out feelers, things like that. So he comes out after the game and makes sure to talk to everybody about it. Hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying at Texas. But let's think about this. I think his system is an NFL system offensively. I think if he wanted to, he has enough connections. He's an NFL guy. What do you think on that, of him going to the NFL?
You've got Titans written here in the notes. They're the only team that has officially fired their coach. The next team on the list, whenever they lose their next game by 24 or more points, it's Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. A lot of there's some crossover there, X's and O's wise. And so I could see something there. Does he retool Tua, or does he just like, Quinn Ewers, I should have had you stay at Texas. You were a 7th-round pick of the Dolphins. Run it back. Let's go. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, these are the two teams that have fired their coach and will likely fire their coach. So I think that, yeah, because of a lot of his things are working in the NFL, maybe. But, I mean, the situation does not get better in college football than it does at Texas. In the NFL, you're fired after 2 seasons. You can see what happens. And I mean, you're in full control of the program when you're at Texas.
Yeah. The thing to me, I think you're right. If just looking at the landscape right now, the only place I probably would go is I would go to Miami. The problem I have if I'm Sark, why would I leave the circus of Austin to go to a circus with the Tennessee Titans? That to me is and how bad, we'll talk about this here in a little bit, but how bad did they look firing Vrabel now that what we see with what he's been able to do with the Patriots? It's insane to me. So we've been sticking around on the first couple of things that we talked about is these kind of first round quarterbacks or ones that were perceived, Arch was supposed to be the next coming of I don't know.
2027. Trust me.
Just give him some time. People, give him some time. But I want people to understand Indiana, yes, not the basketball school, the football school, this team is really good. They also have a quarterback that everybody needs to start remembering. His name is Fernando Mendoza. He's from Miami. He went to Christopher Columbus High School, which is a big time private school there. He is 6'5", 225. This is not, this is like some Diego Pavia kid who is just like moxie and all moxie.
Yeah, a Todd Reesing built. I know you remember the name, but just like a good Baker Mayfield type. I know he ended up working out in the NFL, but some of these guys are just like, hell yeah, man, you can just score touchdowns in college football. Fernando Mendoza is that, and 6'5".
He is a legit prospect. He is the mold of what you want in an NFL quarterback. Here's some other things. I did a little bit of research on him. He was going to go to Yale and went to Cal, and then he transfers to Indiana. So this is a guy who is super, super bright. He's cerebral. If you watch him, he is a really fun
football because he's gonna go to Indiana of all. I know Signetti's changed the program and done all that stuff, but like Cal's still the Harvard of the West. I'm sure they're one of the schools that say that they want to be that, but like he's a guy that left that institution to say, you know what, let's go to Indiana. Let's figure this out.
Yeah, I look, I've liked him. I liked him when he was at Cal. I remember hearing a lot of buzz around him. Cal's got this crazy freshman quarterback, and then you watch him and he pops. I think the other thing too, this defense is legit. And so if you followed Match Quarters at all, I have talked about the James Madison defense. Bryant Haynes is a name to remember. Signetti's locked down, and I guarantee you they're going to lock down their defensive coordinator here too. Multiple defense. They bounce around from. They have primarily a 4-down front, but they bounce around from a lot of tight front stuff to an over front stuff. They do a bunch of stuff, lots of stunts. Their blitz package, they killed Oregon in protection schemes. They did the exact same thing to UCLA. It's not exotic. This isn't Wink Martindale at Michigan just doing face melter 5,000 blitzes with man coverage behind it. No, there is like some nuance to this. This is really, really good defense. Let's stick with a defensive head coach. Texas A&M beats LSU. The story here, though, is not that A&M beats LSU. I think we all know this is a legitimate team. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly gets fired. Supposedly, there was some really tense meeting afterwards.
The governor was there.
Yeah.
The governor.
That just shows you how important this program is in that state, is when, like, it is the program. I don't think –
governor.
Yeah. Yeah, so – So Stephen A, I guess, went off on it this morning or at some point in ESPN. This is a $54 million buyout. I think with the other buyouts that they've had, we're reaching, I think it's over like $100 million to Orgeron and to Kelly, to neither one of them coach.
Good. Neither one of them to do nothing. $800,000 a month until the end of the contract.
Yeah, it's insane.
$800,000.
Yeah, I think like Charlie Weiss is probably the only one who is even better at that. He had it to where there was no mitigation. So basically, if you find another job, that they just pay the difference between what you were making. No, he had it. He got full paid. He was like getting paid. He might still be getting paid by Notre Dame.
Imagine 80% of Bobby Bonilla Day, but every month.
Yeah. It's insane.
80% of Bobby Bonilla Day. But
we all could have seen this coming, though. He never met the hype, really, ever. Yeah. I like their defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. I think there was a lot of problems around. Nussmeier just kind of has fallen off, and the offense has gotten worse over time. I do think that it was too soon. They've lost to Ole Miss, who Ole Miss just beat OU. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Look, Ole Miss is legit. Vandy, I know as hard as it is, the psychology around losing to Vandy, you're just like, how is this possible? But Vandy is on a heater. They're the best they've been since World War II. Yes, history buffs. World War II since the 40s. And now A&M, who we know is a legit 5 program. So they have Alabama coming next. I would have waited to see what it looked like at Alabama before I would have pulled the trigger.
You give them hell. Like, you give them hell in that game, all of a sudden we might be sitting here talking about a $50-some-odd million buyout of Kalen DeBoer. As crazy as it is, we could be sitting here talking about if you just wait a week and just see what happens. And I know, like, firing them after the Alabama game, there's as many optics around it as you want to say. But if we're facing, and I know this isn't exactly in the docket, and we can kind of get here because James Franklin, this is why I don't think he's going to be a candidate in a lot of these jobs, especially in the SEC, because every game is a big game. He's proven he can't win big games. But and I think it is kind of interesting, Brian Kelly as a Penn State candidate, because he was successful in that realm of the country with going back to Grand Valley State, Notre Dame, obviously. But right now, Matt Rhule is the leader in the clubhouse for the gig.
Yeah, I think you have to look. If I'm Penn State, I think you go with a Penn State guy.
Mm-hmm.
You get Matt Rhule. Yeah. I think it's probably it just stinks for Nebraska because Nebraska
they finally got it on the tracks. They finally got something going, and he's gone.
Yeah, but that's Matt Rhule. Look, I'm a Baylor guy. That's Matt Rhule in a nutshell. Yeah. He's going to come in. You're going to suck your first year. You're not going to be any good, and then you're going to just go on a heater, and you look like you're going to be awesome. But then you're never going to end up being like, the 12-1 or, that you're going to undefeated season. He's always going to they're going to lose a game they're not supposed to. He's another one that's really frustrating. He says a lot of the right things. Look, a lot of the Texas high school coaches here love him. He was awesome in that role as a college head coach. I think if you talk to the NFL guys, it was very much do not like him. I think he's where he needs to be at the college level. That just stinks for Nebraska because I feel like they're cursed. It's the Frank Solich curse. You fire him, then you go get Callahan, who completely destroyed and gutted your walk-on program. Mm-hmm. Then you get Bo Pelini, who was perpetually winning 10 games. They were just going 10-4 every year. They couldn't handle it. There was a weird relationship with him. Remember, he got caught on that hot mic deal. He was pissed at the Nebraska fans, even though everybody knows Nebraska fans are pretty much the best fans in college football. But you're going to now be like that. Now you're in the NIL era where I don't think Nebraska's a poll. I don't know if you've ever been to Lincoln. We're from that area, both of you. It's like going to Manhattan, Kansas.
Honestly, and I'm not saying this as a joke. I am saying this kind of as a joke. Friend of the show, Coach Drew Dallas might have a better time recruiting to Hutchinson, Kansas than the next guy at Lincoln, Nebraska, if we're all being honest.
It's a tough. Now, fantastic facilities. If you can just stand living when everything dies at the end of September, you're good. But hey, look, North Dakota State and South Dakota State do really good at the FCS. Which, by the way, tangent. North Dakota State, I think How did
I know this was going to make it today? Because I saw it come across my ticker. I'm like, I'm not watching this game, but I know who is.
Awesome on both sides of the ball. If you love power football and then you love good defense, watch them. But anyway, they killed South Dakota State, which is probably their only competition. This is a team that so I think someone was like, I saw somewhere on social media, was like they need to have a playing game with the top G5 team with North Dakota State to see who actually goes to the playoffs. I would watch that game.
That would be fun.
Let's stay in the Midwest. Oregon stutters a little bit against Wisconsin. I think it's a little bit press pause on Oregon, especially after Indiana. Wisconsin is another one of those. I don't think Fickell survives this season. You're trying to run spread in a power world. Look, Dave Aranda had one of the best quotes about Wisconsin is that it is the land of the power forward. Everybody there is over 6 foot and looks like a Viking. So you're going to have awesome offensive lines. You just got to find a few skilled kids. You can always find a running back. So it's just lean into what you got, man. Yeah. Play an odd front, play power football, get after it.
Exactly. Especially, it is kind of funny. I think you can find, if you were centrally located, out of Nebraska, sure, you could recruit the entire country. Go get your wide receivers and quarterback skill position players out in the West Coast. You go out and get your defensive backs out in the South and South Florida. You can get speed out in South Florida. Yep. If you're looking for offensive linemen, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, that you're right in that spot. You're like, you know what? Let's spread this thing out.
And that's the thing. Going back to North Dakota State, why do you think that North Dakota State and South Dakota State are some of the best teams? That's because they get the best linemen and then they develop them. A lot of the Cody Mock kid, but he plays for the Buccaneers. He came from North Dakota State. He's the one that doesn't have any front teeth, which is beautiful. But he was like a tight end, and then he gained 50 pounds. And became the 320-pound behemoth, 6'5". The guy's massive. So I think that I agree with you. You're trying to live a spread It's like when that happens, like these coaches go to these programs that have traditionally been, we have really good offensive linemen, we have really good D linemen. We may not have a lot of the skill positions, but we can play a little bit of bully ball. And then they're like, oh no, we're going to run the spread and we're going to throw the ball 50 times. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily translate in some areas. All right, let's switch it to let's go down south. Georgia Tech is still undefeated. We can go through this really quickly. This is again
talk about a place that really can pop it off. I mean, in a similar way to Indiana has. I mean, you're in Atlanta. Well,
yes.
Like, you should be able to recruit well, and like it's a nice place to live. And I mean, you're starting to get some momentum rolling. I think Georgia Tech can really start getting things rolling, even more so than they already have.
Well, it's little brother syndrome. I think everybody look. Here's the problem with Atlanta is the same problem like SMU. Why will SMU probably never be a national title contender, even though that they're in the ACC right now? They have the money guys. That's not going to be the problem. The problem is everybody in the country recruits Dallas. The problem with Atlanta, everybody in the country recruits Atlanta. And then not only that, you're not in the SEC. You're in the ACC. And so you are going to lose out if it's a 50-50 flip of, hey, I like Georgia Tech, but Florida's offered me, or Tennessee's offered me, or even like Kentucky's offered me. I'm going to probably, as a kid, I'm probably going to go play in the SEC just because it's the SEC and it's an NFL factory. But they will.
They're undefeated. They're undefeated.
I know. But that's my point is like, I think that they have an opportunity this year. So I put this in our notes. They're going to finish. They've got 4 more games. The 2 games that they could potentially lose, they have to play Pitt. Pitt is always tricky, especially later in the year. Narduzzi always kind of comes up with some crazy things to do to the quarterback. They will have to play Georgia. It's still going to be in Atlanta. So even though it's a neutral site game, it's not really neutral. It's going to be in Atlanta. Still, though, I think if they can go undefeated, this is one of those turning point parts in that program of like, look, we're not little brother. We can do this on our own. I think that you also too, people forget this is a technical school. This school has some deeper pockets within it. And I think like if you can, it's one of those two. Hey, prove to me that you can win. They're rebuilding. That whole facility is going to be brand new here within the next year. So this is a school I would keep an eye on Georgia Tech. Speaking of quarterbacks, like Arch Manning that have kind of fallen in favor. Mateer looks to be turned into a pumpkin after surgery. Look, he's playing pretty good. It's just there's a lot of problems with this. I think the interesting story here, quarterback wise, and again, you're going to be here. We have another small school connection. Chambliss, who plays for Ole Miss, is actually a D2 quarterback. He comes from Ferris State. I know that defensive staff really well. Those guys are awesome. And they were telling me when I went and saw them, because they played the national championship, which is here in McKinney. So I drove up to see them, go to a practice, and they're like, yeah, our quarterback's legit. Well, sure enough, fast forward 6 months, he's at Ole Miss. He's a starting quarterback at Ole Miss. This is a guy that passed for over 2,000 yards, rushed for over 1,000 yards at Ferris State, and is now tearing it up as a junior at Ole Miss. He's legit. That kid can play. Yeah,
it is. And I mean, you get him a guy like Lane Kiffin who wants a quarterback at all times, like a guy that he can mold. Speaking of quarterbacks that are going hard in the paint, and you mentioned it earlier, since World War II, 7-1 for the first time, the Vanderbilt Demon Deacons.
No, that's Wake Forest. See, you can't even tell. It's the Commodores. See, that's the thing. Vanderbilt. You think Vanderbilt and Wake Forest are just perpetually not good, and so
it feels like Florida State and Boston College. Like, is this an inter-squad matchup? What's going on?
Yes, no. Hey, I guarantee you're not the only person that's ever said that, so that's totally okay. But yes,
when you wrote in here, Diego Pavia is a demon, so I'm like, oh yeah, they're the Demon Deacons.
Yes, my fault. I should have known. I should have known that the words there are going to be no. He is. Look, everybody, if you have not watched Vanderbilt, there's 2 reasons why you want to go watch Vanderbilt. One, they got Pavia. That kid is a football player. The word moxie, that we love throwing that word around, moxie when it comes to quarterbacks. He's the definition of it. That kid just wills them to win. And then defensively, Steve Gregory is a name to remember. That he's a longtime NFL guy. He comes from the Flores system. This is a guy who plays an NFL-style defense. If you remember, the last time Vanderbilt was really, really good, they had a guy named Jesse Minter as their defensive coordinator, who is now the defense coordinator of the Chargers. So Steve Gregory is a guy to remember.
BYU, I can't watch them play because their quarterback wears the wrong night. Aside from their games likely coming on way beyond my bedtime, that bothers me. Why are you wearing number 47, dog?
Yeah, I've seen 22. We've seen the 22 at quarterback.
Even that, like 19, 19 will get me a little bit. 18, like Peyton Manning, fine. He's the only one.
You got to keep it under 20. Like I said, we've seen the double digits. Like a 22, I think, is like a classic. I can't remember why, but it's a classic. I'm sure there's a history lesson there. It's a classic quarterback. 99, the kid from Michigan. I just remember that because it was on the NCAA football.
Yes,
that we've had that. 47. I'm sure there's an awesome story behind it. I'm sure it's like in the family or something. But yeah, 47 at quarterback. But hey, he's legit. He's really good. They will play Tech next week. That's going to be a preview of the Big 12 championship. So if you're in Big 12 country, I would definitely tune into that. Look, BYU is one of those teams that you forget is in the Big 12 until you realize, like, oh, they're undefeated and they're like 8 games into the season. I probably should pay attention to them. I need to know what's going on. The Big 12 is shaping out to be really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. They also have to play at Cincinnati. So Cincinnati is at Utah. They will play BYU in the next month. So Cincinnati is the other team that's kind of hanging around. The one team no one, so they're not even ranked, but the one team no one is talking about is Houston, who has Wegman at quarterback. Yes, the kid that got ran out of A&M for Marcel Reed is now the quarterback. The only loss they have was not by that much to Tech, and guess who was hurt? Wegman. This guy, Austin Armstrong, is a friend of mine. I know him really well. He was at Florida before. He's kind of been around the Aranda Roberts kind of systems. Good young defensive coordinator. He's got that defensive rolling. This is a team. Houston is a team that we need to look out for. That's going to be kind of the dark horse in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Now we can talk about some of the big boys.
Yes, let's move on to the NFL. Let's get that rolling.
Now going all the way back to last Thursday, you've called it a wasted season in Minnesota. I would agree, but it's probably more about the other teams around them because Green Bay looks legit. Detroit still looks like who they're going to be. And even Chicago, I mean, I know they're coming off the loss to Baltimore, but they were coming off a 4-game win streak before that. And I think that Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams will figure it out as the season goes along. And even if they were in a spot to be like, all right, we're 500, a little over halfway through the season, the only way we can win out and see where we're at, that division's so hard. And especially when you play like you did against, like the Chargers got back to, they did exactly what they wanted to do against your better side of the football. And the Chargers look really, really good on the other side of the football. But talking about it from Minnesota's standpoint, do you think they're done this year?
Yeah, the defense is exactly what I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year. If you remember back, my big concern here was going to be that secondary. And I think, Rodgers had that one game where he had like 4 turnovers. I think he had a pick 6 and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So he had a really good game. The problem with that is that they get a little bit exposed in that back end when they can't get a pass rush. And Alt coming back changes the narrative around the Chargers. This is a defense that can play, about a top 10. And then this is an offense who we've been saying it since the beginning. Where is the run game for the Chargers? When are you just going to lean on somebody? They figured out really early that this Vikings defense couldn't really stop the run. And so they just went after him and they punched him right in the mouth. And I didn't think that the defense had much of an answer. And that was going to be, again, the secondary and the run stopping ability of the Vikings was always going to come into question. They wanted to have a pass rush. They got rid of their run defenders, and then they don't have any secondary players. And that to me is a recipe for a disaster. When you play a team like the Chargers, who we both think is going to I think there's going to be 3 playoff teams from the West this year again. And this is definitely a playoff team.
They looked really good, but we'll see about the stupid Broncos.
You mean the lead? Hey, who's winning the AFC West right now?
Oh my God!
Just say it, dude.
Right. Relax.
I told you to get out of your feelings before this show came on, and here we are, wait halfway through.
Christmas Day game. It's going to be one of the most beautiful. Have you seen the way that I'll leave it alone for now. Anywho, Saquon Barkley breaks out in the first breakout that we've seen this season. Had 14 carries for 150 yards, 60 of it on the first drive of the game, second play of the game. But on the other side of the ball, the Giants, they kind of just lost their way, and I think especially for a young team like that, and a team that was in flux with energy by one of these two guys, Cam Scatterbo going down with a dislocated broken ankle looked horrendous. It was one of those just I had to watch it because it was red zone and Scott Hansen hadn't seen it yet. And so I had to see it with him. And so it was just kind of one of those things where I was just like, yeah, dude, you're done for the season. And then especially for a player like that relies so much on his physicality, what does he look like moving forward? That's a conversation for another day. But I still think the Giants, Brian Daboll probably gets the can, but at the same time, you got Jackson Dart, a left tackle, some defensive pieces. Giants is going to be a good job if Brian Daboll doesn't hold on to it.
I think they're going to give him one more year. I only think that just because they need help at the corner room. Flott went down, and so they were getting killed on the outside. I think that they might be able to steal a game against the Commanders. I think you could argue that they could probably steal one with the
Cowboys for sure.
And so I know Scatterbo hurts, but they do have a decent run game. That's the one thing they can do. I think Jackson Dart's going to continue to get better. Neighbors they're without Neighbors and they're without Scatterbo. That offense just is not going to look very good. I mean, who are you going to throw the ball to? I do think that there's pieces there, and I think Daboll keeps his job because here's the thing: are you really going to fire him? So
hurt this year too.
Yeah, and reset. Look, you know who you are. And you are on the cusp of being basically what Jerry Jones hopes that he can pull off next year is like, look, we traded Micah Parsons, but look at how much better we are now because of it. Them getting rid of Saquon, they're going to argue, well, that money is going to other places. We're able to do some other things. I think the GM, it probably saves his job. I think Daboll probably saves his job one more year. But this was just one of those where the Eagles were there. I think the biggest story here with the Eagles is like, look, why is A.J. Brown trying to leave?
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with Hurts. And so you're going to have to figure something out with Hurts going forward.
We can talk about these two pretty quickly. Two blowouts in the early window. The Patriots over the Browns. But Micah Parsons gets 5 sacks in the Micah Parsons. Good God, what's wrong with me today? Myles Garrett gets 5 sacks yesterday, and he threw his helmet on the ground because I think he wanted to break the franchise record. He's probably going to get 6 because Will Campbell couldn't do anything with him. And then the Bills had a get-right game against the Panthers. They were playing with a lot of short fields because the Red Rifle made his return to
Andy Dalton pulled a classic Andy Dalton where you just can't see the field. You throw picks that you have no idea what's going on. Sticking with former Andy Dalton teams, the Bengals defense is bad.
My God, almost like 500 yards from Justin Fields. I thought Tyrod Taylor was going to start until I was like, oh snap, number 7.
And I don't think did Garrett Wilson even play?
I'm not even sure.
That was a game too. Yeah, I don't even think Garrett Wilson played. So like that's terrible. And that just shows you how bad the secondary is. I mean, look, they were so ready to get rid of Lou Anarumo, and then he goes to the Colts. The Colts, who by the way won,
and some money too.
Look defensively, like, oh yeah, I forgot they have a really good roster. Oh, now we inject them with an actual defense coordinator that's not just going to run 4 down, cover 3 every play. And look what that. I think that. You asked the question here in the notes, if the Bengals miss the playoffs, which I think they probably are going to, I think you have to have a full reset. I think the run game is completely non-existent and has been forever. He can't do what Matt LaFleur has done, which is figure out the gun run game. I know that sounds crazy, but in the NFL, gun runs are they're not as productive as you think they are. They're kind of feast or famine, and he hasn't been able to figure it out. And Yoshi Voss, that's another guy. Like, I want him to be so good because he's a beautiful.
I like Yoshi Voss.
He has a fun name, and it's like, dude, you continuously drop passes. Again, I don't know, it's been pretty crazy.
I mean, you mentioned it there, and I think an interesting call will be, and we mentioned it at the beginning of it. Mike McDaniel's probably on his way out. A guy who ran the run game for Kyle Shanahan, if you want to adjust that. I'm not saying he's your head coach, but like Run game coordinator, offensive. I don't know what that situation looks like or whatever that. But I mean, I'm just thinking of a name, Mike McDaniels. And if they have a run game problem, the guy who can fix a run game with pieces, and I think the Bengals have more pieces than the Dolphins first had, and even what they do now and what he's able to do with Ollie Gordon of all players. So I think that Mike McDaniel would be an interesting hire somewhere, probably not a coach, but somewhere in your organization.
I just think there's too many of the off-field stuff for a lot of these organizations to pull him in as a head coach right now. But I think they're going to go for a defense, a guy that I would assume, because they're probably going to want to get a McVay offensive coordinator or a Shanahan. They're going to want to stay in that realm. Is I think Chris Shula would be a name to think of. And defensive head coach. Yeah. It can come in and fix it. You're going to keep your defensive end, Ty Hendrickson. Come in, fix it. They're going to have to reshuffle that, but that's a name that I would keep tabs on. Finally, let's end it. We'll quickly go through this just because I know Felix is going to get in his feelings about this because he hates it when we win. But Denver looked really dominant against the Cowboys. I know you thought the Cowboys were going to win. I told you not to.
I just need them to stay inside the number.
Yeah, and they didn't, and it was bad. And it was, I still think like this is a fun defense to watch. But if that ends up becoming an issue with his shoulder, Abrams Drain looked absolutely scared to line up against Pickens, and that's not a good thing. So, and the Cowboys are a little weird because Pickens or Lamb could go off. So it was like CD. He looked scared. I think the statement in the later window was the Packers. They look like a legitimate Super Bowl team. And they made sure to bring it up. And I think it's very, very interesting. The 27-year-old mark is hitting for the Packers. What does that mean? Bart Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Look, that's more than coincidence. So go ahead. If you're a betting man, Felix, and I know you are, let's go ahead and let's put the Packers winning the Super Bowl in 2025.
I think there's another team that has a little bit of history to after it, but we'll talk about them at a different point. Looking ahead to Thursday night football, the Baltimore Ravens, they got a much needed win over the Chicago Bears. Aside from the actual performance in the game, they needed this. Obviously, the late news coming in on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, that Lamar Jackson wasn't going to play. They still go out there, have a very good defensive performance. Snoop Huntley comes in for Cooper Rush, and so he looks really good. I still don't have a good feeling about Zach Orr, their defensive coordinator. And coming up on Thursday night, they'll be going up against a potential candidate for their replacement in Anthony Weaver. He was also their former defensive line coach before he took the job with the Dolphins. Interesting to see what happens this Thursday night between – the Dolphins they blew out the Falcons the other day too. So, these are two teams that are – not too great in the win column, but at the same time, they have some momentum in their favor.
Yeah, what a time to meet each other, because I think this is probably for both of these teams a must-win game. I know I heard some people. I think I was watching the NFL show on ESPN before the game, but talking about the Ravens of look, this is still very much a team that people think can make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Lamar comes back. I think you can probably say we feel like they're better than the Steelers. The Steelers defense again fell back down to earth. Yeah. Look, Rodgers is going to give you problems if you play a lot of zone. You try and do a bunch of zone blitzing. He's going to hit it quick. I just don't know if they have the talent to look. Metcalf is great, but again, he had a wide open look. It was a great play by the DB, but that's a Metcalf play that you figured that he can come down with. I'm with you though. The Zach Orr, I probably think they do move on. There's a weird story here, and there was something I was talking to my dad about this. We were talking about this. Denard Wilson and Anthony Weaver leave at the exact same time when McDonald gets the head coaching job with the Seahawks, which makes me believe that they were going to give them co-coordinator roles and that there was going to be probably some oversight by Dean Pease is probably who just gone on what the actual game management. There probably was neither one probably was comfortable being a co-coordinator. Now, again, this is 100% speculation on my part. I don't know the story, but this is what I'm thinking. This is kind of what the map lays out for me. Because otherwise, why would you lose both of those guys?
Right.
So both of them go be their own coordinator. I think Zach Orr, without Pease there this year, has really struggled. And look, that's not an indictment on him. He got thrown into this. This is probably not fair to him. Pease probably didn't want to have the sole role of being defensive coordinator. So he comes in as a consultant, helps Orr clean up his game planning stuff, and is there on game day to help out. I think Weaver is probably the one that ends up getting the nod just because that defensive line has really cratered. That's what has always been the engine for the Ravens. And so I think Anthony Weaver, I'm getting buzz. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about Anthony Weaver as a head coaching candidate. So it would be interesting to me as somebody for the Ravens, if Orr doesn't end up lasting at the end of the year, I think Weaver is the guy. Though I know Denard Wilson, a lot of people really like. So it's just going to be one that do you want to have the guy run the secondary, or do you feel like you need to have the guy up front? I think you have the guy up front. And then look, this game is also momentum for both of these teams. I think that if the Dolphins are going to be able to right
short weeks too, coming off a quick win on a Sunday, and then can we get 2 wins in 5 days?
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's a short week. When you talk to these guys in the NFL, the short week actually is not as big of a deal as you think. It simplifies a lot of the things. You kind of are like, hey, what are we good at? Let's run that. And so it's kind of
mini buy on the other side of it too. You get 10 days off. Yeah.
Right. And so I really think I think both of these teams, and this is probably why this game will be a little bit better than most people. Probably everybody's going to look. If you're box score watching, you're going to look at this and be like, I can find something else on a Thursday night to do. I really think this game will be good because it's on a short week. Both of these teams need this win. I think Mike McDaniels is fighting for his job. I think Zach Orr defensively is fighting for his job. I also, the last point, and then we'll get out of here, Felix, is Huntley is the reason why you have an athletic quarterback as a backup.
You always have a scrambler as the backup. I don't care who if Peyton Manning with his feet glued to the ground is your starter, you have to have an athletic backup because you can do something. He can at least get yardage if he's not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, and Snoop Huntley's a good football player, but even you can just get yardage in that. I mean, at the absolute top end, you get Colin Kaepernick and he takes you to a Super Bowl. But on the low end, you get a guy that can get you a first down.
Yeah, and I think that's when you go in and you play that. And then the Bears, I think the story too here is what absolute failures here by the Bears not to be able to capitalize on a 4-game win streak. Caleb, we talked about this pre-show. Caleb Williams with the quintessential Caleb Williams game. He throws for almost 300 yards. No TDs.
Just a flat-footed interception in his own end zone. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, we regressed, and you've been running the ball so well, it kind of disappeared. So I think that's why we talk about Zach Orr. If he can slowly get this thing going back, maybe you're able to save your job there a little bit. But then too, the Falcons, look, Penix, they've looked bad now 2 weeks in a row. Another team that could run the ball isn't able to. I think Kurt Warner and Dan Orlovsky both said it. Like, this was like a very basic game plan. They didn't give him much to work with. Bijan Robinson, who I love, I mentioned multiple times on this show about him, 0 run game, and your O-line is built to run. So I think we'll end with that. Just you have two teams going in opposite directions there. Thursday night's going to be a good game. We're going to try and start previewing the Thursday night game because this does come out on a Wednesday. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let us know. If you guys want us to cover anything schematically as well, put it in the comments or just make sure to hit me up on Match Quarters. Thanks for joining us again today. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. It does help us out. We're trying to grow this thing because we are one of the few shows that actually talks about ball. Felix, thanks for joining me today. And hey, go watch some football.